So, in the previous video, we have discussed some of the things of the chapter, the address. We'll continue with the same chapter. Back in the time, she saw Mrs. Dolly in person. Day after her mother told her daughter about her. Okay, so it was Mrs. Dolly who was introduced to the daughter by her mother, means by Mrs. S. And the next day she could meet her. Now she woke up late that morning, and as she was going downstairs, she saw the lady. Who is this lady? This is Mrs. Dolly, a lady with broad back. Now, at the time, her mother, means that daughter's mother or the protagonist's mother, was seeing her out. And that time, her mother, means the protagonist's mother, introduced the protagonist or the daughter to this lady, to Mrs. Dolly. She signaled to her, and the woman responded with a nod. She picked up the suitcase under the coat rack. She was wearing a brown coat and a shapeless hat. The protagonist asked her mother if she lived far away. The mother told her the address, that it is Marconi Street, number 46, and today she still remembered the address. She remembered the address, but she took too long to visit the place. After the freedom, she was on one hand not interested, and on the other was afraid. So these are the reasons why she took a long time to visit the place. She was afraid of getting confronted with the past memories and connections that no longer existed. Connections were all hidden in cupboards and boxes. These were the connections, means these were the things which were given to Mrs. Dolly, which have now become the old or the past memories for her. It seemed that those memories were waiting in vain to put them back to their places, as they had suffered all these years because they were only things. No one was there to take care of those things the way the protagonist mother was taking care of them. Okay, so as if those things were also waiting, but the wait was in vain. Things were getting normal in the protagonist's life, but one day she got so curious about all the things that were still at that place or at that address. She wanted to see them and touch them because her feelings are attached to them. After the first hopeless visit, she decided to try one more time. When she reached Mrs. Dolly's home, a girl of 15 years, she opened the door. Protagonist asked her about her mother. Obviously, she was expecting there that Mrs. Dolly will be there, but as she was not there, she is asking the girl, and the girl told her that she was outside doing some errands, or we can say shopping, to which the protagonist decided that she would wait for her. The protagonist followed the girl along the passage. There was a Hanukkah candle holder hung next to a mirror. She remembered that she never used to it as it was unmanageable. So this is how, when she can see the things, she remembers the feelings and the emotions or the past happenings related to or associated with all those things. The girl asked her to sit down as she opened the door for the living room. She stopped, and she was disturbed. She was standing in a room which she knew and she didn't. So, this is how the writer has very fantastically said about the girl who was witnessing the things or the belongings. What she says that she was standing in a room which she knew, she was knowing the place, but still it remained unknown because it was, the things were not arranged or organized properly. As she followed the lines of the pattern, she remembered a burn mark that was never repaired. It was since that time on that cloth, on that tablecloth, and it was still not repaired. The girl told her that her mother would be back soon and asked if she would like to have a cup of tea. She answered, "Thank you." She was standing in the middle of things which she didn't want to see, and they burdened her. Maybe because of the way things were arranged, or the humid smell in the room, or it can be the ugly furniture, and she was so scared to look at everything. She sat down on a chair which the girl pulled out for her. She looked at the woolen tablecloth, she rubbed it, and her fingers felt warm. The protagonist looked up. She saw the girl put 2 cups of tea in front of her. She had a broad back just like her mother. She poured tea from the teapot, and it had a gold border on the lid. See how carefully she is observing each and every object. She opened a box and took some spoons out of it. The protagonist complimented the girl about the box. She felt weird hearing her own voice. It was sounding different to her. As the girl turned to give her a cup, she asked if she knew about the box. Then she added that it is antique, according to her mother. She pointed around the room and said that there are more. This is the girl, or this is the daughter of Mrs. Darling. She told her to see, although the protagonist didn't need to follow her direction. She knew what she was talking about. She glanced over the tea table. She remembered how she used to fancy the apple on the plate. The girl shared that they use the plate for everything. Once they ate off the plates that were hanging on the wall. The protagonist found the burn mark on the tablecloth. The girl looked at her in question. The girl also must be thinking about the visitor. The protagonist said yes and told her that when you are so used to touching things into your house, you hardly notice anything. You only notice when something is missing or it needs to be repaired or because you have lent it. She again found her voice to be unnatural. She continued. She told the girl that once her mother asked her if she would help her polish the silver. It was a long time ago and she was bored that day. She had to stay that day, maybe as she was ill. She asked her mother what silver she is talking about. Her mother said it was the spoons, knives, and forks, but she didn't know that it was silver. The protagonist asked if she knew. The girl hesitated and walked to the sideboard and opened a drawer. She said she would see if it was there. So this is how the dialogue goes on between these two girls. The protagonist jumped and said she forgot the time as she had to catch the train. The girl asked her if she did not want to wait for her mother. Then the protagonist replied, the protagonist still replied with a no and said she must leave. The girl pulled the drawer open. The protagonist said she could find her way out and walked down the passage as she heard the ringing of spoons and forks. When she reached the corner of the road, she looked at the nameplate again. It said Marconi Street and she was standing at 46. The address was correct, but she doesn't want to remember it anymore. She didn't want to go back as the things in there reminded her of memories linked with the familiar life of old times. But they lose the value when you are separated from them, and that's absolutely true, and you see them again in a strange environment. She thought of what she would have done with her small rented room, where blackout paper hung over the window and no cutlery fitted in the narrow drawers. So she is convincing herself that there is no use of carrying all these things with her. It's of no use. She finally resolved on forgetting the address as it would be easiest thing for her. So this was the story about the chapter The Address. If you have any doubts, you please ask me in the class. Thank you.